You are in for a treat right here. We are going to learn about the science behind making your videos actually work, actually find audiences. You have these great creative ideas, right? They're uniquely yours, but there is actually a science to getting people to see those ideas, to view them and to watch them. So this session, we're going to go up to the curtain. We're going to pull it back, and we're going to have some research that's been uncovered about thumbnails, scene selection, and the order in which you present your work. And we're going to introduce some tools that can actually predict your content effectiveness before you hit publish. So I'm really excited to have on stage. Now, this is an interesting session. Anybody want to play dueling banjos for me? We have two moderators for this session. Our first moderator is David Joyella, who's the co-founder of Presaige, joined by Mark Littman, the CEO of Presaige. Both of them will be moderating and sharing their wisdom as well. And then our other speakers, Brian Atten, co-founder and COO at Simian, and Jay Brooks, co-founder and CTO of Simian, will be here to pull back that curtain and give us the science about how to get your stuff viewed. So as I pull that curtain back, David, Mark, Brian, Jay, please come up here before I fall off the stage.
We'll introduce ourselves in just a second, but we're here today to talk about the secrets to increasing engagement of your creative content. That encompasses not just creators. We're in the creator space, so it's for creators, but it's also for professionals, and it's also for just people. There's some life lessons in here that we've learned in our research. So just first of all, out of curiosity, how many people here are creators? Would you consider yourself creators? Okay, a good amount. Any professionals here in the industry? We have some of those. And out of curiosity, how many people are here? Regular, just people. How many? Looks like most of us are people. Okay, that's good. So there's something here for everyone. I think there's something that creators can take away. There's certainly things that professionals can learn, and there's some life lessons in here as well. So first, by way of introduction, David and I have been in business together for about 30 years before Presaige. We have a 30-plus year history in the entertainment industry, creating promos, trailers, all types of content for show opens for television networks, cable networks, streamers, brands direct, and advertising agencies. So we spent our entire careers making things that we hope work and our clients hope work. And some of it does, some of it doesn't, but we're never quite sure why. And we've always wondered that, and we've struggled with that for our careers. And so several years ago, we had an idea. We wondered, is there a way to scientifically figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work before you send it out into the world and have people tell you? So computer power didn't really exist several years ago to kind of test our idea out. And just recently, about a year and a half ago, it did. And we started to test this theory that there's hidden signals inside images and inside videos. And our research uncovered almost 2,000 kind of hidden things that you wouldn't even understand as a person, but a computer does understand. And we were able to correlate those to ultimate performance, clicks, likes, other things of engagement. And it was a pretty interesting thing. We actually have a patent pending on this technology now, and it's proven to be very useful. And we'll discuss some of the ways in which it is to make better things, whatever those things are. So I'm Mark. This is David.
I'm David Joyella. I'm a co-founder of Presaige. I'm an editor, creative director background. And I think you'll find some tips here that can help you create content across wherever you're using it. Social media, broadcast, films, even just a personal Instagram page. So let's keep going.
So we've been longtime collaborators and friends with the folks from Simian. I'll let them introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of bring it together and explain why we're here together.
Hi, I'm Brian Atten. I'm the COO of Simian, and Simian is the media sharing platform, and we work primarily with advertising companies, production, post-production, anybody that's in the business of presenting their work for winning jobs with their talent in that industry.
Jay Brooks, I'm the CTO at Simian. Brian and I have been working in software and media, entertainment, fashion for just about 25 years now, and really focused on kind of the real building process and the post and production industry probably about 17 years ago. So we're really heavily into the data and the analytics that go around the whole media ecosphere when it comes to advertising and commercial workflow.
I think one of the most interesting things about Simian, and one of the reasons we like partnering with you, is because you have an insane amount of analytics for a company that helps send out reels. And I think that's one of the key places we got some of these insights from.
Yeah, we've been clients of Simian since they started, really. And it's been an indispensable tool for tracking when we're trying to award new work, sharing work with networks and brands and advertising agencies, and then looking at the insights of the data that's created from people who interact with our work. So that's kind of the basis for what we're going to go into now.
Yeah. You want to go?
I was just going to kind of from day one, when sending presentations like B2B, we identified immediately that the analytics, knowing who's viewing, not only who's viewing, but what they're viewing, how long they're viewing, what sections of a video they're viewing. It's really key in the sales process to be able to deliver the content that your customer's looking for. So right from the beginning, we've always been heavily analytics driven. And did you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing Jay said. So
Dueling banjos.
yeah, pretty much. But yeah, he's right. We've been doing that for 17, 18 years now. And we're going to talk about this here a little bit, but yeah, the order in which you put your thumbnails in and the way you curate your thumbnails, it makes a big difference when people are going to screen your work or they're not going to screen your work. So, and I know we're going to talk about that here, so I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, let's jump into the next.
So let's get right into it. So as we said, the issue is not creative. Everybody here seems pretty creative. We're not here to criticize your creativity. The problem is you've done something great, but it doesn't get seen or it doesn't get engaged with. And that's kind of the tragedy. And so that's what we're here to talk about. We like to try to predict what's going to work. Different people have different roles in predicting that. But it turns out as people, we're not really good at that. We're not as good as we think we are at that. Some people might be a little bit better. Some people might be a little worse, but we're not great. We rely on guesswork, testing, and we waste a lot of time and iterations and money and opportunity in that process. So how can we make it better? Well, the first topic to talk about is thumbnails. And this is a kind of an interesting one. Thumbnails are important for three ways. And this is, kind of maybe boring, but important, but it's actually really interesting. So thumbnails do a bunch of things. They attract people in the first place. Am I going to even click on this? Am I going to even engage with it? Number one. Number two, they predispose you to react to something in a certain way. They kind of set it up and tee it up. Am I going to like it? Am I going to hate it? What perspective am I going to come to this at? And the third one is really interesting. Sometimes the thumbnails are the whole shebang, it turns out. Sometimes the thumbnails are all you get. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing. But I think the overall note here is that you can't underestimate and undercount the importance of those thumbnails. So we should start talking about that.
Yeah, and really the thumbnails, you think of it as a bounce rate. So when someone comes to your website, you've got just a couple seconds to engage them before they leave. And your thumbnails are the exact same thing. If you come there and there's unappealing thumbnails or they don't really hit the target, the target viewer who's looking at your content, they're out. But if those thumbnails do capture their attention, you'll get that click.
Yeah, and a lot of times you're deciding based on your own personal creative interests or background or some type of subjective preference for an image or color or composition. We've learned that that's not the way to do it. So we're going to go into that. But when it says sometimes thumbnails are the whole engagement, we've really tracked that in Simian when we send reels out. Sometimes people just look at the thumbnails to make a decision if they're going to work with us. And that correlates to an Instagram page if you're putting posts, correlates to YouTube Shorts if you're looking at a grid. Sometimes people are judging your content just by a quick glance because people are busy. How premium and how relevant is this to me just in the second it takes to look at the thumbnails that you're presenting?
Yeah, we've been creating what we call real insights reports for the last several years. And as David mentioned, they're clients. And in our industry, people are presenting their talent. They're presenting their directors, their editors, composers to you. But when it comes to directors and editors, they're presenting their work. And we've noticed in the data that we've uncovered, the clients that take the time to curate their thumbnails, they're the ones who have the most engagement, and it's by as much as 20%. You know, so it's super, super important. And yeah, and we talk to producers all the time, and we ask them, what makes you not screen a reel? Well, it's if their thumbnails aren't curated. If I'm doing a spot for sheet metal or something for, I don't know, an auto shot or auto commercial, if you've got kids or dogs or animals that aren't relevant to the boards, or it doesn't look like that it fits the atmosphere that they have in their mind, they're not going to click. So taking the time to do that, it's super important.
Yeah, let's move on.
So a lot of tools, a lot of things out there auto-generate thumbnails for you. A lot of platforms kind of just make a guess at it. And some people put different levels of importance or different levels of effort into their thumbnails. This session is not really here to talk about how to make a good thumbnail. We're here to talk about how to evaluate what would make a good thumbnail. And the how here, we actually are just introducing, if we have a booth over here that you can come visit and see, we just introduced a tool that uses our engine that I described a few minutes ago, our kind of crystal ball, if you will, that you can put a video in, and it goes through the entire video frame by frame, and it evaluates each frame of that video using our proprietary technology. And it kind of spits out the top 2, 3, maybe 4 candidates that it thinks or knows which will get the most engagement. So we're not saying that this is your thumbnail. Maybe there's some text added to it, or maybe there's something else that should be done with it. But we are saying that there's a really high degree of confidence that this is, of the imagery in your spot, this is the best chance of people engaging with it.
And it's not a guess. Behind the scenes, the algorithm is comparing the images in the work you're putting into it against millions and millions of other images and videos, and the engagement with those other images and videos. And we're not looking at the context of the content or the idea. It's purely deciding based on the pixel structure of the image, which is more likely to generate engagement than something you pick on your own. So in this instance on the slide, this is a Blue Buffalo commercial that we produce. When you put it in, it's saying this larger image is the suggested thumbnail that you should use, not based on the context of a kid and a dog, but based on the light and the pixel structures and the composition, stuff that you can't analyze using your own creative skills. If for some reason you don't like that one, we're giving you some options and you can pick another one, but that's the general idea.
Yeah, and like we said before, the kind of cool thing about it, or not cool thing if you're a creative director that makes kind of decisions like this, is it's completely data-driven. It's not, and sometimes, interestingly, it's counterintuitive. Sometimes it's not what you would have expected, and sometimes your intuition goes against what it says. And, that's something for you to reconcile. We're not trying to dial humans out of the process. We're trying to give you another tool to help make your decision. You can still trust yourself, and you might be right and you might be wrong, but this is a pretty accurate, data-driven voice in that room that you can trust, at least as a source of, should I listen to it or not?
A confidence factor. Maybe you would have picked that one on your own, and this just backs up your own intuition. But that's not the whole story. So we have more.
So the next kind of big thing is order, and order kind of has 3 things about it as well. So when we talk about order and number. So order and number of spots matters.
Right.
And this is where we start to talk about the life lessons of things, yeah. But I'll go through these real quick and then we can talk about all of them in detail. The order of attraction also matters. So we talked about thumbnails a minute ago, but the order you put those thumbnails in the form of a carousel matters a lot. And then the order of the content itself, not talking about thumbnails or carousels, but the actual content. Sometimes, as creators would know or professionals know, you have 2, 3, 4, not a lot of seconds before people click away or stop watching something. So you want to kind of put your best foot forward first. And how do you know what that is? If that fits in with the storytelling, you should have a tool that can help tell you that. So order and number is something that you guys know a lot about.
Yeah, it's huge. Over the last 10 years, we've analyzed literally millions of presentations, and every year we get about the same answer back, that the sweet spot is always going to be about 6 spots per any presentation that you're sending. And this is for in a business context, but no matter what every year, or how much data or how diverse the data is, it always comes back to between 5 and 7, and an average right on 6 spots that gets the most engagement from the end user. And it's pretty fascinating. It's like, where does that 6 come from?
Yeah,
Well,
and it's not
Yeah.
20.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brian?
Sorry. Yeah. We spoke about this earlier, 1 or 2 spots, maybe the producer thinks, oh, this guy doesn't have enough work. They can't do the job. 15 spots, that's way too many, unfocused. I don't have time to look through that. I've got 100 other submissions to deal with. But 5, 6 spots, that's kind of the sweet spot. Whether they watch them all or not, as long as the thumbnails are there and they match what they're looking for, that's your in.
That also applies to carousels if you're using it on a different platform like Instagram post or any platform that has carousels. The point is to try to capture the audience's attention, and numerically 6 is a great number to stick with.
And I think a Simian reel is kind of like a carousel, but in a different context.
And I kind of brought this up kind of as a joke before, but it wasn't. The life lesson in there, I think there's a life lesson hiding in there too. And we kind of talked about that, why is 6 the right number? 2 maybe is not enough for whatever we're talking about, 1 or 2, and 15, 20 means maybe you haven't curated things or thought enough about it, but 5, 6, 7 means you're probably right in the sweet spot. And that's kind of something to think about for almost any presentation or anytime you're presenting a collection of things in your life. I think that's it's turned out to be kind of accurate across the board, not just for reels.
Yeah, it's a proxy for experience. If you have 6 really great examples of what you're trying to show, that shows you have some depth and you know what you're talking about. If you have 2, you probably don't have enough. And if you show 20, you didn't put the work into curating someone else's experience. So they're wasting more time looking at something you could have culled down yourself.
And the difference between engagement is night and day too, between 6 and 15 or 6 and 4, 6 and 3. It's at least 20, 30%. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a significant number.
But that's not the whole story.
So talking about moving on to more specifically the carousel. So we talked about the thumbnails. You could have the best thumbnails picked. Presaige loves your thumbnails and everybody loves your thumbnails. But if they're in the wrong order, that doesn't help very much either. And it turns out the order matters quite a bit.
Well, yeah, it does. And that's one thing, that's one data point that it's hard for us to really tell. But this day and age, though, with Presaige, they can tell you what's going to get the best engagement based on what order you put it in. And I think that's something that we're going to look into, putting back into our product, because over the last, years, so many people are like, do you have something that can help us build a reel better? Can you help us curate a reel? And it's like, well, you know your work better than we do, but now I get it. I understand that, with technology, there's probably something that we can do to help these, and you guys are already solving it.
Yeah. And from a business context, sending a reel for, as you guys would send, for us, we always say, put your best stuff first, because a lot of times people don't even watch past the first spot, at least from a business standpoint. I know the content creators, that's a whole different story, but from our end, it's put your strongest one first. You may have 6 spots and that will get the most engagement of any presentation, but that first spot's that's your hero.
Yeah, the analytics show people generally watch the first thing you show them all the way through, and then the attention drops off. And sometimes they don't even watch what you show them. And that's another insight we'll talk about. They're just looking at the curation of the thumbnails and your overall image, and then making a decision if they're going to work with you. And we see that Simian analytics.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get bid on jobs where nobody watches it. They look at the thumbnails, or they watch one spot and they say, we love your work. If you ask them questions about it, they have to make it up because they haven't watched it all.
Yeah, I think that's just, that attributes just good practice on your guys' end, curating the thumbnails, meeting the brief. So yeah, I think that's the key. Curating.
So we talked about the importance of the order. I think it makes sense. So how can we contribute to that? So this is our general purpose tool. So we showed you a few minutes ago the thumbnail, which is kind of a special purpose tool built on top of our engine. This is a little more of our general purpose tool, which helps you make those decisions, again, data-driven, in a data-driven kind of analytic way that's not subjective. So this is an example of our interface. And again, you can see it a little more clearly in our demo if you want, and you can demo your own content if you like as well. But we give you a score pretty clearly here. And the way you would do it is put all the contenders in. And if you want to stop right there and just pick the one with the highest score, that's a pretty good strategy.
Yeah, just put it first. So this interface shows the Presaige interface on the left. It shows the Simian interface on the right. So when you get a Simian reel sent from these guys' platform, you have a hero image. We try to stick to the 6 representative spots we talked about, and then order the spots by highest Presaige score to lowest. And that shows that we're pretty likely to get full engagement with that first spot, and then maybe not so much with the others, but it's also combined with the thumbnail. So everything's tied together here. You may get someone who interacts with your service just by looking at the screen, liking the thumbnails, and that's it. Or you may get some more engagement with each spot incrementally by making sure the order is correct. So when they watch the first one all the way through, they're more inclined to watch the second, etc.
Or you might decide to bail on a couple entirely because they score below a certain threshold, and we are predicting that they're just not that great. And we could be wrong and we could be right. But if you have 8 contenders for a 6-image carousel, maybe you throw out 2 of them, or maybe you throw out 3 of them, and you only go with 4 or 5. So you're only putting your best foot forward.
Yeah, that's pretty simple. I mean, anything we tend to say on the Presaige side, any score 7 and above is pretty good. And those are really worthy of being a contender. Anything below that, you really have to want it in there, and you put it last.
So another, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I tend to agree with that.
So another interesting application of our engine is not about thumbnails or order necessarily, but generation. I know a lot of content these days is generated through generative engines, and probably everyone here, or most people, have played with them or used them professionally. And if you do, you know, they have a lot of power, but they also have a lot of limitations, and they require certain initial conditions, whether they're the prompt or the image that you're starting with, to get the best results, as opposed to the first result that's coming out. And as we found, better seed images lead to better generation. So if you put a seed image in that's less than ideal, you're going to get back a video that's less than ideal. And sometimes the differences are very small. And that was an interesting thing we discovered also. Sometimes the differences in seed images are very, very subtle, but the end conditions from those differences in the subtle initial conditions can be very big and can lead to a very large difference in the ultimate Presaige score of the final video.
Yeah, for example, we go to the next slide. So like, this is a project we're working on for Lyft. It's AI generated, and you could see these 3 seed images, which were from a text prompt, text to image prompt. They look pretty similar, but they're actually not. When you look at the pixels in these, there are subtle differences. Some of them are larger, like the driver is different, but some are the sky, the clouds, the road, something that we can't really detect as a person. So what we did here is rated our generations, made 3 generations, rated them. 2 got a 6.2, 1 got a 6.5. 6.5 was the contender that we moved into video generation. That video generation got a 7.1, which again is green. We like 7 and up. So we took the best seed image to make the best video. This cuts down on endless cycles of generating 10, 20, 50 seed images or 10, 15 video generations. So it could save you time, save you credits. We did a test on the other 2, the 6.2s, and moved those into video generation, and the scores were much lower. Again, even though the images are very similar.
And another useful feature of our product is it offers recommendations, very specific recommendations on how you can improve the content as well. And so that can lead to a very interesting iterative workflow where you start with one image, and it's kind of on the product roadmap to make this a little more automatic. But you start with a contender for a seed image, you get back a score like that first one, maybe 6.2, and you apply those recommendations back to the engine or back to a different engine, and you can take the same initial idea and then work with it through maybe 2 to 3 iterations of recommendations and get yourself up to something like a 6.5 or something higher that will then lead to a better generation for the overall video itself as well. So it's a kind of interesting workflow, again, that's completely data-driven.
Yeah, and there's a lot of opportunities here for us as Simian to integrate this back into our workflow products, especially for some of the review and approval, especially on the generation. Yep. So this is all stuff we're working with Presaige to, bring this back into our product and then, utilize all these features for, the business end of it.
I wanted to make sure to leave time at the end for questions. If anybody has any difficult, interesting, fun questions, feel free to shout them out.
All
Awesome.
right.
Yeah, now we're on.
Could you please clarify when you talk about the effectiveness of 1 through 6, are we talking about like a vertical list, or what if it's like a horizontal carousel or multiple rows within a carousel? Could you just clarify what you mean by what's effective in terms of UI?
You guys can talk about that. You have a lot of different formats I know that you offer.
Yeah. In our world, companies are presenting their talent, their directors or their editors, and the carousel it's 6 videos. So there's 6 thumbnails, and they could be stacked. They could be horizontal, or they could be, rows of 3 in squares, or however they're presented. They could be like stacked that way too. But they're thumbnails for videos, and I think I answered your question, right? To define what they were.
Around what I'm going to paraphrase for you, but it's more around what's the best way to lay them out. Should you lay them out horizontally or vertically or in a square, like Hollywood squares? Like how do you take 6 and turn it into value?
Okay.
In our platform, we have like 5 or 6 different presentation style templates. And the template that gets the most engagement is the one where the video player is in the center, and then there's smaller thumbnails across the bottom. Always gets way more engagement than any of the other templates. So in our world, that would be the winner.
Any other questions?
Oh, I see one over there. Hold on, I'm running.
We're going to make you run to the other side.
I wanted to do the Phil Donahue, and we're doing it. I love it.
When you say that it's data-driven, how do you guys analyze what's going to perform well?
We spent about 2 years training a proprietary model to look for hidden features inside a video or an image. They're almost, not to be like cheeky about it, but you almost don't know what they are. So the computer, it's kind of like, that's the AI machine learning portion of it. It looks at basically the pixels of the image and various things like relationships of, I don't even know what they are, colors, contrast, and things, there's a red pixel here and an orange pixel here and a line. And it correlates it with actual data of what people have engaged with. So whatever this image is, it could be a blob, I don't know. Humans have engaged with it. So it's science, and it may not make intuitive sense, but it's what the data showed us.
And actually, we've done tests where we compare images that are generally like golden ratio, rule of third, things people find to be artistic or beautiful in the historical context. They don't always line up with what people engage with most, because especially on social media, people aren't looking to engage with a piece of art. They're looking for a connection in some other way. Mm-hmm. And it often doesn't correlate between what might be traditionally beautiful image and something that people have clicked on a lot.
Did you guys ever run any human tests, like study tests, to see what they liked?
We didn't run any tests like that they're actually out in the wild. They're effectively being run right now because the creators and the people that are.
Well, we actually
did.
Yeah, we took historical data from years of engagement on our platform, and then ran all those same videos through the Presaige platform, and then compared the data. And there was especially on thumbnails, a huge correlation with a high Presaige score and high engagement on that content. So
we have another question right here.
How accessible is your software and your services to like the individual creator? Because I know like sometimes when you have things like this, I'm seeing like, and I'll just be frank about pricing and stuff like that. And a lot of times it's like available to like enterprise level people and that kind of stuff. But like your average person who's putting out videos on Instagram who wants to get more engagement.
That's a great question.
Like, how accessible is
it? There's that. There's a free there's a free level and a premium level. The free level lets you do a certain number of images per month, but doesn't unlock videos. The premium level is about $99 a month, and it unlocks videos, and it gives you a certain number of credits, which is usually enough for most creators. And then above that, there's an enterprise level if there's a need for API integration with other platforms. But we tried to price it. It costs a lot to process each of these images and videos, and there's actually a limit right now of a 1.5-minute time frame on the videos based on that processing cost. But it should be something that most creators who are able to put this into their workflow can afford.
Yeah, that was my next question too, is like, how long is your runtime? Because I am aware that there is like a big processing cost to this.
So it returns a result on a video in under 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 2 to 5 minutes. It returns a result on an image in seconds. And then the recommendations take a little bit longer, but we could open up the duration to be longer than 1.5 minutes. It's just not cost effective right now.
Sure, understood.
But it was something that we did want to keep accessible. Like, you're right, a lot of these products are just enterprise level, and we do offer an enterprise product for enterprises, API stuff. But we thought it was important that this was accessible to people as well. Why not?
We're seeing a lot of content creators use it who are generating revenue from their platforms, like YouTubers and people who have Instagram accounts, and people who have some type of, not just of a hobby, but a reason to use these tools.
Well, we're out of time. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. If you'd like to learn more, we're over here at the booth, and we can demo for you, give you a free code. And thanks very much for joining us this
Simian
afternoon.
guys might hang out, too, if you have questions for
Thank
them.
you.
Yeah, how about a big round of applause for David, Mark, Brian, and Jay? Thank you guys so much.